Yeah, I should do that.
Okay, it looks like it's 6:30, and so let us reconvene. The first thing we have to do is to certify about our closed meeting. Ms. Pinkston, do you have the certification motion?
I do. I move that this council certify by a recorded vote that to the best of each council member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session.
Is there a
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Ms. Thomas, take the vote, please.
Councillor Payne,
Yes?
Councillor Pinkston,
Yes.
Mayor Snook,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Okay. So we're now in the business session. We'll begin that 6:30 p.m. business meeting with a moment of silence. Thank you. Councilors, any announcements?
I have a proclamation. I don't know if you want.
We'll come to that.
Okay.
Come to that. Hold. First, the next item, and then.
Or sorry,
Oh, you got one?
just a real quick announcement. Just wanted to highlight that there was a vigil held this Friday for the life of Elder Smith, who was lost to gun violence, and just wanted to highlight that in their life and the impact they've made on our community. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Michael. I think that, many in the community know that Eldridge was like a son to me. He was a longtime mentor, mentee of mine, kind of where I kind of cut my teeth in this community on mentoring from early, mid 90s till he graduated. And what I learned from him and working with the young men is what prompted me to run for school board for 16 years and to make some change there, and to see him grow from a little boy to a man with a family, and to have this happen and the impact that he was having was truly, it hit me hard, and had a lot of support over the last week. And so we're ready to not let what happened be in vain. And so thank you for mentioning that, and prayers to his family that have to deal with this tragic loss. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. So, next item on the agenda is a presentation to Sina McGill. Ms. McGill, would you come on down? Let me just read this to you. Read it to the rest of the world. You'll get to take this home. Presented to Sina McGill, Vice Mayor, January 2020 to December 2021, City Council Member, January 2020 to January 2023, in recognition of your commitment to the citizens of the city of Charlottesville, Virginia, and with great appreciation for your 3 years of dedicated service as a member of the City Council. So,
Thank you.
Can I leave the box?
you can leave the box.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave the box. I have enough boxes.
Well, for some of us, you get to a certain point in your life where you say, that's a really good box.
I have a lot of really good boxes. I just want to thank you all very much. It's been a pleasure serving with you. I was actually going to come tonight in my pirate garb to remind you to be a little bit silly and to be a little bit weird and to embrace the weird. But I couldn't get the bodice lined up right, and it just wasn't working. So instead, I
Star
come in a
Trek.
vaguely Trekkie looking, live long and prosper.
All right.
However, it's never good to be one of the people wearing red in a Star Trek episode. They always end up dead.
I didn't know that now.
Thank you all very much. And I want to thank everyone who stood up and put their names forward to fill my shoes for the next 10 months. I really appreciate it. I made a commitment in 2007 to my family. It's one of the reasons I ran. And that commitment take precedence over everything else.
Amen.
And so I appreciate the community support and stepping forward to make it possible so that I can step down from this and be where my family needs me to be. Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure serving this community, and I'm not leaving, so.
All right.
Thank you so much. And thank you, I said this before, I'll say it again, that one of the things that I most appreciated about you and your service on City Council was that you had knowledge about fields that I had no knowledge about social services things, about mental health issues, and so on. And one of the things that I think makes a good city council is when we have complementary interests and complementary skill sets. And you complemented us well with both an E and an I. So thank you so much for having been with us, and we'll look forward to calling on you from time to time. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Sina.
So next item, proclamation, Congenital Heart Disease Awareness Week, February 7th to 14th. Our proclamation, whereas congenital heart disease, CHD, is the most prevalent birth defect in the United States, affecting 1 in every 100 births, and whereas each year in the United States more than 40,000 babies are born with CHD, 800 babies born annually in Virginia with a congenital heart defect, of which 400 will need surgery within their first year of life. And whereas there is no known cure for CHD, as it is a lifelong disease that requires ongoing specialized care, and whereas the health and well-being of congenital heart patients is of paramount importance, UVA Health Systems has performed over 53 pediatric heart transplants since 2013. And whereas, thanks to the advancement of science and medicine, 85% of individuals born with CHD now live past the age of 18. And whereas even with these advancements, fewer than 10% of adults with CHD are receiving the recommended care that they need. And whereas medical research can provide more identifiable means of the origins and symptoms of CHD, and whereas it is crucial that individuals planning a family, fetal clinicians, obstetric physicians, pediatricians, and all those in the medical field have a greater understanding of the potential for CHD. And whereas Congenital Heart Disease Awareness Week provides the opportunity for patients and families affected by CHD to share their experiences and knowledge so that the general public may be aware of how this defect affects lives. Now, therefore, I, Lloyd Snook, Mayor, do hereby proclaim February 7th to 14th, 2023, Congenital Heart Disease Awareness Week in Charlottesville, Virginia, and encourage everyone to learn more about CHD and its effects on our friends, family, and community. Signed and sealed this 6th day of February. And I understand that Casey Fletcher is with us via Zoom. Ms. Fletcher?
Yeah. Yes, I'm here. Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to proclaim this week Congenital Heart Disease Awareness Week. My son was born with a congenital heart defect. He had surgery at 4 days old. 1 in 100 babies are born with a congenital heart defect, of which 25% require surgery in their first year of life. Charlottesville is a center for Virginia for congenital heart disease because we are the only transplant hospital for pediatric transplants in the state. You guys have done at UVA 19 transplants have been done in the last 9 or 10 years. And it's only increasing as we're able to retain some of the best transplant doctors in the region. And so you guys are helping create awareness and bring more light to this disease that affects, again, 1 in 100 babies born in the U.S. And we are only improving the outcomes for these children and allowing more adults more of these children to grow into adults and provide and give back to their communities. So the outcomes are only improving, and will continue to do so as we create more awareness and create more research and develop, better methods for dealing with congenital heart defects. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being with us.
Yeah.
It's an important issue. Evening, the second proclamation, Vice Mez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Proclamation for Black History Month 2023, whereas February is the contributions of Black Americans to the formation of our country, and whereas during February we bring focus to the stories of Black Americans who have built our nation and our city, who have advanced the cause of freedom and civil rights, our community, and whereas we examine our nation's history and the history of Charlottesville, which continues to be written, we discover countless stories that inspire us, stories of triumph of the human spirit, the triumph over cruelty rooted in ignorance, prejudice, and bigotry, and the triumph of everyday people rising above seemingly insurmountable circumstances to achieve greatly. And whereas we commit to work with intention to address past injustices that have hurt the Black community, racist laws, policies, and practices that were intended to displace, intimidate, and financially harm Black citizens, we acknowledge our collective responsibility to break down barriers to equity and inclusion. And whereas as we celebrate Black History Month, we teach our children, our neighbors, and all Americans to rise above complacency and to be champions for human dignity, fairness, equity, and equality. And whereas this time to rededicate ourselves to affirming the promise of the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas in the city of Charlottesville, we resolve to teach the true history of all our people in both public schools and public spaces, and whereas Black lives do matter in Charlottesville, Black people are valued and vital members of the community. Black culture is woven into the fabric of the community, and we work to attract, welcome, and retain a diverse population. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Charlottesville, Virginia, hereby proclaim Black History Month. This is February's Black History Month. We call the people of Charlottesville to join us in learning about and honoring Black achievement and Black experience in our community and throughout the country. We encourage support of Black History Month programs. Sign and seal this 6th day of February 2023. J. Lloyd Snook III, Mayor. So thank you.
Thank you.
And so I just want to add that also the local NAACP for the Charlottesville Albemarle branch, they have a really robust list of different things that you can do to support the African American community that you can find on their site. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Wade. So next, we have no appointments for boards or commissions for this meeting. However, a reminder that if you are interested, the application process for the next round of appointments is open until March 10th on the city's boards and commissions webpage. If you go to that website, eventually find a button where you can click on it, a link for filling out an application. It will tell you what's open, what positions are available, and what positions we're looking to try to fill. Next, we come to the consent agenda. Ms. Thomas, would you read the consent agenda, please?
Consent agenda. Number 3, minutes, January 3rd, council meeting, January 17th, council meeting, February 2nd, budget work session. 4, resolution appropriating grant funds for improvements at 10th Street Northwest and Grady Avenue, $500,106, second reading. 5, resolution appropriating funds for the Safe Routes to School program, non-infrastructure grants, $229,803, one of 2 readings. 6, resolution appropriating Supreme Court of Virginia Behavioral Health Docket Grant in the amount of $61,500 for operations of the Therapeutic Docket Program, one of two readings. 7, resolution considering a special use permit request for 345 US 250 bypass, the 250 bypass fire station, one reading. 8, resolution considering a critical slope waiver request for the 345 US 250 bypass, the bypass fire station, one reading. 9, resolution appropriating State Criminal Alien Assistance Program grant for 2021, reimbursement in the amount of $7,743, one of two readings. 10, resolution appropriating funds for appraisal services at 0 East High Street, $3,800, one of two readings.
Thank you. We will now take public comment regarding items on the consent agenda, those 8 items only that were just read by the clerk. If you wish to speak on either of the public hearings or any of the public hearings coming up later on, including on the question of who we should appoint as city councilor, this is not your time. If you are one of the 6 people who had pre-registered, this is not your time. So if you want to speak on one of those 8 issues that were just read, each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. If you are on the Zoom webinar, you may select the raise hand option to be placed in the speaker queue. If you have joined by phone and wish to speak on the consent agenda, you may press star 9. We will alternate in-person and virtual speakers. Is there anyone in council chambers who would like to speak on one of those 8 consent agenda items? Okay. Is there anybody online who would like to speak on one of those 8 items?
Mayor Snook, there are no raised hands.
All right. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Ms. Thomas, will you take the vote?
Councilor Payne?
Yes.
Councilor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 4-0 to adopt the consent agenda. Next, we come to the city manager's report. Mr. Rogers, is there a report from the city manager's office?
Mr. Mayor and Council, the city manager's report is in your packet. There's nothing I want to particularly highlight tonight. We have a big agenda, so we will pass it back to you.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that there are a number of places in this report where you note we have now hired somebody to fill this position. I think I counted 7 new hires that were detailed in there. And of course, that doesn't include people at a lower level who may not rise to the same level of attention. So you were quoted a couple of weeks ago as talking about all the vacancies that we've got, but we are nonetheless making progress on filling some very important roles.
We are making progress, and we're thankful for that. But there remain a number of vacancies, and we're concerned about that. But we keep chipping away at it, and we will report every time we hit a goal.
Good, thank you. Anybody have any questions for the city manager? Questions about the report? Okay, so now we come to community matters. We have 6 pre-registered speakers, leaving 10 slots for additional speakers on community matters. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak, and we will now open the floor to pre-registered speakers. Our first speaker is Ruth Hill. Is she available here? She's here. Okay, Ms. Hill? And I've had a request that we ask everybody to say your name and where you live.
My name is Ruth Hill, and I live at 389 South Boston Road in Palmyra, Virginia.
Okay.
I'm here today to, I guess, I'm rooting for and hoping that we can get the speed cameras up in the school zones, because right now it's a big problem. It's a very big problem. We have speeders that come through every day. The crossing guards are constantly trying to stop them. We, flag them down. We try to tell them it's 15 in the school zone. And it seems like it just doesn't help. So,
are you a crossing guard?
Yes.
I thought I recognized you, so I think you glowered at me when I came through too fast one time.
Yes, sir.
job, Jim.
That's right.
But yes, so it's become a big problem. And even on Monticello Avenue at Clark, where I am, they come off of 64, a lot of them, and they just keep up that speed. The speed is down to 35 when they come off. It's 45, then it goes to 35, then 25, and then they get to the lights. A lot of them just seem that they don't see the light, they don't recognize the light. So I think this is needed. And even my daughter works over at Buford and Johnson. She has the same problem with the speeders, and when she's had 3 people actually jump out of the cars to say something to her because she asked them to slow down. I've also had people I've had people cuss at me, finger up. I mean, you name it, they do it. And I think this is a big help.
Well, I appreciate the service you've been giving to us, and hopefully we can make the burden a little bit lighter with something like this.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate that.
thank you, Ms. Hill. Second speaker pre-signed up is Ricardo Mateus, if I've got the name correct. Is it not here in the room? Is that person online?
Mayor Snook, I do not currently see Ricardo in the Zoom.
Okay. Third person up is Nicole Jones. Is Nicole Jones here? Is Nicole Jones online?
I do not see Nicole Jones in the Zoom.
Okay, we'll see whether we come back to her. Mr. Hall, you're fourth up. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm Johnny Hall from Fry Spring. I think it's high time that we started talking about annexing UVA. It's called for by the Virginia Code and the statute. And it's about time that we did that so that we can defray taxes for people, real estate taxes for people in the city. You know, UVA, it's got over $1 billion in endowment. And, you know, I've been researching. You know, research comes before development, R&D. And since it is something that by law should have happened a long time ago, we should really start to entertain it as a city council and as well as the people. You know, a lot of people are, I've been out campaigning for the city council, and a lot of people want lower taxes, and they feel like taxes are, it's difficult for people to live in the city anyway because of the expenses. And if we were able to get revenue from UVA into the city coffers, as should be done by annexing UVA, we would then have all the money we need to give people lower taxes, and also at the same time, through annexation, get our Charlottesville area transit buses all the way to the airport. We have the route already there, Berkmar Drive, and there's development out that part of the county. And maybe as a concession, we could take care of some of the private roads that are part of the neighborhood homes associations out there, and be able to maintain those roads and take care of the potholes and things like that as a concession, so that the people in the county would allow us to favor this kind of provision. And by doing this, everybody wins. It's a win-win situation for the people in the county as well as the city. UVA pays their fair share. Need to talk about paying your fair share, and especially people like me that are on a fixed income and at a lower level, Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Next up on our list of pre-registered speakers is Mark Cavett. I see Mr. Cavett here. Mr. Cavett, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Point of clarification, excuse me, point of clarification, is this not the time to talk about someone I want to recommend for the vacant city council space?
It is not.
Okay.
You'll have that opportunity later. The fact you've spoken now doesn't count against you later.
Right. Last year, I was in New York City. Once you got out of Midtown, I was surprised how orderly the traffic was. No speeding, no running traffic lights. Then I noticed why. Manhattan uses speed cameras and red light cameras. Maybe we need them in our city, especially since we do not have enough police officers. Every day that I'm on the streets, I see cars, trucks, city buses, and even police cars running lights. Comment about that too is last week I saw over at Preston and McIntyre a 18-wheeler truck literally go through a yellow light when it could have stopped. I saw the same day another 18-wheeler do the same thing over by the new Centera building on High Street, and I cannot begin to count the number of cars that I see continuously going through lights. So we really need to do something. People seem to know that there's not too much enforcement taking place these days, so they just don't care and just go through. I'm going to be sending to each of you something that may help. Hope you will take a look at it. I saw something on the internet just by chance this week that's some new technology that maybe the traffic engineer may not be familiar with. So hope you'll take a look at this and forward it over to them. Last year, Mr. Freeze spoke to the Downtown Neighborhood Association. He informed us that those areas in the ADC districts would not be rezoned. After looking at the proposed maps, I have to feel we've been misled. I'm sure the NDRI board would like an explanation, and we're going to be inviting Mr. Freeze to meet with us in the future. And we would like to know a little bit more about some of what we saw online. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cavett. The next pre-registered speaker is Kevin Cox.
Hello, my name is Kevin Cox. I live at 311 Fairway Avenue, that away. And I am also a crossing guard. I've spent a lot of time walking and driving in the city, and I'd like to share some comments, some thoughts about traffic in the city. It's terrible. Everybody can agree with that. It's not going to get much better. It's going to stay terrible. We're going to have more and more cars come into the town. And so now we need more control over some of the drivers who are creating such chaos and havoc. The cameras, speed control cameras at the 3 school zones, that's a beginning, but there's also a need for traffic control cameras at all the school zones. And what's really needed badly are cameras on the swing gates of the school buses. Driving around school buses loading and unloading children is at epidemic levels in the city and the county. I see it on East High a couple times a week at least. Many jurisdictions now have cameras on the buses that are activated when the swing gate opens. They record the license plate and action is taken. So I hope you do that. Now I want to say one other thing though about this. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of publicity about how bad the situation is at the school crossings. Well, sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it's downright inspiring, and I come away uplifted because so many people support the guards, they support peace in the roads, they want harmony, they wave to me and they smile, they thank me. There are far more of them, and I want to thank those people and encourage them to continue, to keep on, because it's their attitude that really can change what happens in the street. We drive the way everybody else drives, right? When in Rome, you drive like the Romans, and if you're going to New York, well, you better drive like a New Yorker. And it's the same in Charlottesville. People drive on different streets, in fact, in town, they will drive differently. They drive completely differently on University Avenue than the same car will drive on Cherry Avenue. We can make the whole town this way, but I really want to thank those people who are doing the right thing, who are supporting us, supporting the children, and encourage them to hang tough and stay with the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Do we have any sign of either Ricardo Mateus or Nicole Jones online?
Mayor Snook, I still don't see either of them in Zoom.
All right. Is there anybody else online who would like to speak to us?
Our first raised hand will be Peter Krebs.
All right. Mr. Krebs, you have 3 minutes with us.
Good evening, and thank you, City Council. My name is Peter Krebs. I work for the Piedmont Environmental Council, and I live on Tufton Avenue, which is actually less than half a block from where Miss Ruth holds her vigil every morning. And generally speaking, if Ms. Ruth says something, we should do it. That's just sort of my policy. She's won many awards, and I'm so happy to be speaking on the same issue as she is. Specifically, I am indeed speaking on the use of speed cameras in school zones. Undoubtedly, you've read verbatim, word for word, Move to Health Equity's recent community mobility assessment. In the off chance that you haven't read every word, I'll just point out a few of the most significant findings. Number one is that a whole lot of people are finding it significantly difficult to get to school. Number two, the most significant barrier to walking and biking in the city is concerns about vehicles and fear of death or injury. And number three, concerns are elevated in commuter zones and during commuter hours. Now, speed is an especially important issue because it's probably the largest determining factor in deciding whether a collision leaves you annoyed, injured, or dead. So it's really important that we get speed under control. Cameras don't discriminate, so in many ways they're a pretty ideal solution, but we need to be mindful of not disproportionately focusing on BIPOC communities and be sure to listen to neighborhood leaders and residents. In order to assure the most equitable and just outcomes, it's good to focus revenue on better infrastructure. That keeps incentive and harm really aligned closely together. You might want to consider expanding the program if it turns out to be successful. I think the best thing is to listen to the crossing guards and the parents who have firsthand knowledge. I think their letter is excellent, and their proposal should be supported and potentially expanded. Finally, relatedly, I'm glad that you're paying some added attention to the 10th and Grady through the consent agenda. Don't do that at the expense of ultimately neglecting Second and Monticello. That's also an extremely important intersection, and I know you'll get to it when you're able to. But anyway, keep up the great work, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Krebs. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on this matter? On anything, actually? You've already spoken, Mr. Hall, so one time this. Do we have anybody else online who would like to speak to us?
Our next raised hand is Robin Hoffman.
All right, Ms. Hoffman, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I want to say, first of all, I was really, really horrified by Mr. Smith's passing and basically assassination. And I just need for the city to somehow make a little bit more effort, I think, in, trying to control the gun. The gun carrying, the gun using, the assault rifles and all that, somehow, passing an ordinance or something. But, and I'm sorry for our loss because he was, helping everybody through the Bug Squad, and that's just awful that we don't have him here anymore. And then also I want to support Miss Hill. She's my favorite crossing guard for as long as I've been in Willow Mills. Always with a smile and always trying to, and dedicated. I mean, she's up and going every single day that the kids are around there, and it's very crowded. I wish you could drive there, please, City Council, and see how the traffic goes. It's out of control over there, and it's out of control because people are trying to get to work, and that's not a road that people should be trying to get to work. But according to the way people are leaving their homes and getting to 64 and all that. So you have to do something about the signage. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Anybody next online?
We have one more raised hand at the moment, Chris Meyer.
All right, Mr. Meyer, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, good evening, councilors. Chris Meyer, I live in Fry Springs here in Charlottesville. First, I'd like to thank you, city councilors and the staff, for your service. I think you guys have been doing a great job recently. And Mayor Snook, as you mentioned, I'm glad to see the staff being filled out and the positions. I'd first like to comment this evening on the city budget and specifically about the increasing demand on the city schools infrastructure, especially the elementary schools. I'm glad you've been successful in addressing the housing situation in town, and we're seeing Friendship Courts and South First Street buildings going up or being finished. These are great additions, but they're also already adding to or going to be adding to the school populations. I've seen this already at my children's school, Jacksonville Elementary, whose school is now quite full from more families coming from South First Street. There's also been a significant increase of English as second language students who need extra assistance in their schools because they're obviously having to learn English. My children's school has gone from low 20s to over 60 students who are English as second language students in a little more than 2 years, and now account for about 20% of the school student body. At your upcoming meeting with the school board about the budget this week, I do hope you ask them about their capital needs in order to meet the additional students expected in the coming years and how to help support all these new English as second language students. I'd also like to note that Councilor McGill was a strong supporter of the public schools, and I hope you select someone for her seat that is a supporter of the public school system. Finally, and again related to the budget, I'd like to support Mr. Hall's suggestion of figuring out how to get more money out of UVA. I'm personally tired of seeing UVA Foundation and other UVA programs buying up scarce city real estate, the most recent being the small multifamily apartment development by Southern Development in Fry Springs. Can we get some kind of payment in lieu also, just like the city has with the county? If UVA can spend $50 million on a football training facility for a really bad football team, then they can find tens of millions of dollars to support the city budget. Thank you for your time and good luck with your proceedings this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Is there anyone else online?
Mayor Snook, I see no additional hands.
All right, there will be an additional opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting as well as on dealing with the different public hearings. So the next item on the agenda is a public hearing on a lease agreement with the Omni Hotel. Brenda Kelly will present to us. Ms. Kelly?
Good evening. For the record, I'm Brenda Kelly with the Office of Community Solutions. The item you have in front of you is a request to approve a lease agreement with the Omni Hotel for the lease of public right-of-way for an outdoor cafe area located at 212 Ridge McIntyre Road or 235 West Main Street. This lease agreement document in front of you is not the same format as the McGuffey lease agreement we had in front of you in January. This lease is for an outdoor open cafe area on public right-of-way. Here are some items in this agreement that we would like to bring to your attention. The original lease agreement has been in place since 2010. The most current version of this lease agreement expired in January 2021, so currently right now we're operating on a month-to-month lease arrangement. The most current, the lease period is for 1 year with a renewal provision for 4 additional one-year terms. The lease rate is $5 per square foot. This is a one-time annual lease payment. And the Omni Hotel is responsible for all maintenance of the leased area. Also, I wanted to let you know that this lease agreement will most likely be back in front of you in the fall, as the Omni Hotel currently has an application in with NDS to revise this outdoor patio area. The lease agreement at that time will need to be revised to reflect the square footage and the exhibit of the revised leased area following construction of the outdoor patio area. Representatives of the Omni Hotel have reviewed this agreement and are available virtually if you should have any questions for them. And this is a public hearing, one reading of a resolution, and I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Councilors, any clarifying questions?
I assume that our council has reviewed it and that there's no question, Mr. Rogers? Or issues?
Yes, yes.
So I guess this would be roughly $2,500 a year to the city, is that right?
It comes out to $2,510 a year, correct?
And the $5 a square foot is the same as what other people would pay?
That's the same amount that the outdoor cafe permit folks are paying.
Got it. Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And is that the same amount that has been paid for the last few years?
Yes.
Okay.
The Omni's
So
been paying the
essentially, there's
same.
no change.
Correct.
Any other questions? So this is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this issue to council? Anybody in council chambers? Going once, going twice? No, okay. Anybody online?
There are no raised hands.
All right, with no speakers, the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion? Discussion?
I'm happy to move for approval.
All right.
So I would move to approve a lease agreement with Omni Hotel for an outdoor cafe area at 212 Ridge McIntyre Road, 235 West Main Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Thomas, take the vote, please.
Counselor Payne?
Yes.
Counselor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Smook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Yes.
All right, that passes 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Second public hearing is the re-precincting of the city of Charlottesville. And we had the first reading on January 17th. The second reading will take place on March 6th. Because of some vagaries of the election code, both state and federal, anytime we're doing this, we have certain waiting periods that have to get built into the process. So ordinarily, we would have had the public hearing on January 17th, but because of these different provisions, we're not. We're having it tonight. Ms. Yowell, are you going to introduce the item for the public hearing?
So tonight we will be having a public hearing on the re-precincting in the city of Charlottesville. Our main goal here is to reportion the voters between each individual precinct, as well as retire Tonsler Park and Alumni Hall as voting precincts, and then bring in Jackson Via Elementary School as well as Charlottesville High School as the new precincts. Again, reproportioning all of the voters around the city to keep it more even and at a more even number.
Okay. Anybody have any clarifying questions of Ms. Yowell on council?
Yeah, I just would recommend that if you haven't already, just when the schools are closed, a lot of times schools, they do professional development. So just coordinate with the schools to make sure that, on voting days that they don't have any plans for it, at least where the voting area is. Charlottesville High School is a lot of space, but just make sure that you communicate with the schools.
Absolutely.
So let me now open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the room here who would like to speak on this issue of the re-precincting? Okay, anybody online who would like to speak on this issue?
Mayor Snook, I see no raised hands.
All right, so the public hearing is now closed. As I said, I think we don't actually have to do anything tonight. Ordinarily, we would officially pass it on to the next meeting or something, but we've already got it scheduled for the second reading on March 6th. So I don't know if there's anything else we need to do tonight.
Yeah, we've already worked through it. That will, Ms. Yowell, will give you enough time to notarize and implement the changes that you need to do.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And any voter, if this does pass on the 6th of March, then every single voter that is affected in the city will get a new notice. It will be published in the Daily Progress on our website. And if anyone has any questions, they can feel free to call our office at any time.
Great.
Yeah, and I think that Michael brought it to our attention last time that it's going to be about 45% of this voters in the city are going to be impacted by this. So it's going to have a wide net. So
Yes, absolutely.
And lots of folks going to be calling the registrar's office saying, where the heck do I vote?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's all we can do on that item for tonight, and we will come back and revisit it on March 6th. The next item is the public hearing on accepting public comments on filling the city council seat vacated by Sina McGill. She vacated on January 12th, 2023. Let me talk a little bit about the procedure that we followed here, because I think there has been some confusion, and the Daily Progress article did not help. What happened was we had been sort of expecting we were going to get 5 or 6 applicants, and lo and behold, we got 20. And the thoughts that we had about how we would schedule everything for a meeting and have the chance for people to speak at the meeting and all the rest of that, we quickly realized that we could not do that and also interview all of the 20 and also do all of the rest of the things that we need to do within the period of time that we have to act. We have to act within the next 2 weeks. So council, not me personally, council, all 4 of us said, let's go ahead and winnow the field down. And so I asked everybody, please send me your 4, 5, 6 top choices. And then let's see who gets some interest and who doesn't get any interest. And so, whereas the Daily Progress said that I personally chose the people who would be allowed to continue on in the process, what I did was to count the votes cast by or sent to me by each of the other members, and just to see it was not me making decisions, it was everybody making a decision. So I say that only because I want everybody to understand that the folks who are speaking to us tonight are people who have significant support on this council. And it's not just the decision of one person. But we had a fair degree of consensus about who the folks were who were of greatest interest to us. I will also say that there is no official decision from us about what kinds of characteristics we're looking for. We specifically did not make any decisions about that. We each have our own individual thoughts, which we may express at some point, but we as council have not decided anything along those lines. So we've got 6 applicants. As I explained to the applicants, I did a randomized process to construct the order for them, because as one who's always been at the end of the alphabet, I think people who are in the S's always get discriminated against by coming last. So I was going to mix it all up, so I did, random numbers. Anybody else want to comment on the process before we launch into it?
No, I just really want to thank all of the applicants for this. I've had developed a friendship with a counselor in Stanton because they were confronted with the same issues that we were, and so we both were pleasantly surprised that we both had 20 applicants. They had 20 as well. They got theirs about a week before. Their deadline was about a week before ours. I think that just shows that how the city has grown and how much people really want to give back to this great city. So I'm appreciative of the 20 or the 14 that's not here tonight, but trust me, there's a lot of ways that they can give back to the community with the various boards and commissions that we have open. So.
And I've sometimes said the fact that we had so many applicants tells us one of 2 things. Either people think this would be a really interesting opportunity to serve, or they figure, if these guys can do it, I can certainly do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the applicants will speak for up to 8 minutes. Then we're going to have a public hearing. And this public hearing, we're going to have people speak for 2 minutes at a time. Anybody wants to endorse one of the candidates, that's fine. I hope that there will be positive comments rather than negative comments. I'm much more interested in positive things that people have to say. So public comment will come after the folks have spoken to us. And the first one up, again by my random process, is Leah Purrier. Ms. Purrier, up to 8 minutes. You don't have to take that long if you don't want to, but you can.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to come before you and explain to you why I want to be a member of City Council. November 1980, I moved to Charlottesville, Virginia. And let me say, it has been an exciting time. I have grown professionally and personally. I have watched Charlottesville grow. We all have experienced difficult times, but through those times, we have all learned. It is my hope that Charlottesville will continue to be a community that understands the importance of diversity. For me, many talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But for me, it is inclusion. I work with students and families every day, and they get to the door, and the door is opened. And I hope that they have gained the ability to advocate for themselves, to be a part, to be included. As a member of council, sitting on the dais, I will be at the table. I will be included. But more importantly, I will be respected. I will be heard. I will be able to participate. I will practice effective listening. We must listen. We must hear what our community is saying, whether they're students, whether they're parents, or other stakeholders. In my 4 decades of living here, I have had the opportunity as a higher education administrator to work with some of you in this room. We've been on boards, we've done community work together. As counselors, I've worked with you on budgets, not only for the city schools, but budgets for some of the nonprofit organizations that I have worked with. I have developed relationships, and these relationships will carry over. They are relationships not only in the city, but at the University of Virginia and in the county. The 3 of us must work together. We must collaborate. We must partner. I want to be your mirror. I want to be the new set of eyes that will look at the budget, will help you develop the budget, will help you implement the budget. I will be the set of eyes that will look at our personnel policies, our HR strategies, and help you make those strategies be the things that our city manager currently needs to fill all of the vacancies that we have to fill. And I'm sure we can do that. It is not only having a resume that checks off all the boxes. It is having a resume where the person has done the work. All of the things that you know of me, that you've seen of me, that you've heard of me, tells you that I will roll up my sleeves and I will do the work. Life ain't been no crystal stair, but still I rise. I'm the salmon that swims upstream. I show up early, and I am prepared for whatever is presented. To be afforded the opportunity to join you on council allows me another challenge, another challenge that I am up for, to learn all that there is to know about ordinances and zoning and budgeting and finance. Explore new horizons, but more importantly, develop compassion and show our community, our citizens, regardless of where you're from, that it is more than lip service to care. We must roll up our sleeves, we must get in there, and we have to do the work. Charlottesville, compassion, caring, critical thinking, analysis, all of those things are Leah Puryear for the vacant seat of Sena McGill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Puryear. Second, Alex Bryant. Mr. Bryant?
This should be good. Wait, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Mayor Snook, Vice Mayor Wade, Councilor Pinkston, Councilor Payne, it's an honor to be here this evening and to be considered for the position on Charlottesville City's Council. I'm humbled by the opportunity to serve my community and to work alongside such dedicated leaders such as yourselves. I'm not originally from Charlottesville. I was born and raised in Chesterfield County, which is a suburb of Richmond. I grew up in Richmond when it was known as the murder capital of the nation. It was a dark time, and I saw a divided city that was suffering from a blight in the community and division in its members. And I remember wanting to leave and never return. And I did just that. To my surprise, though, the River City did recover. Entrepreneurs flourished, young families moved back into abandoned neighborhoods, artists took over, and where monuments of hate once stood, now exist monuments of love. I regret my attitude towards the city that I'm from. Now in the city I call home, I'm constantly reminded that the people, our citizens, are the only legitimate fountain of power. It is their energy that did what I naively believed was impossible in Richmond. It's that same energy that will help council do what many consider impossible in Charlottesville. Like many others, I came to Charlottesville to study at the University of Virginia. I graduated with a degree in music. I studied ethnomusicology, and my first job was at Monticello running the Heritage Harvest Festival. The Harvest Festival seemed lighthearted enough at the beginning, but soon we began to tackle more complex histories and legacies, such as Southern foodways and culinary genealogy. Indeed, I consider myself lucky to have worked with many accomplished agricultural leaders and culinary historians, such as Ira Wallace, who was recently featured in the New York Times for her work saving seeds in Louisa County, Lenny Sorensen, who contributed to Netflix's High on the Hog, and Jessica Harris, who, among her many accomplishments, designed the dining experience at the Smithsonian African American History Museum. This festival that I thought was about honoring Jefferson's Epicurean legacy really told the stories of who was doing the cooking and who was really doing the planting. And it opened my eyes to the innumerable contributions African Americans gave to this country, some beginning right in the city. Working with these influential yet humble Black women and the entire community of Epicurean leaders taught me the importance of being a servant leader. I believe that it's my duty to listen to the needs of the community and to work to address as many of those needs as we possibly can. It's with cultural humility that I approach many issues, knowing that my privilege and experiences shape my understanding, yet that does not mean that I should not try to more fully understand these complex issues, especially the issues that have burdened some of our most vulnerable in the community for many generations. I'm a firm believer in that by reimagining how we identify and address these issues and approach solutions with an innovative and creative mindset, we will overcome challenges that are endemic not just to this city, but to our entire country. Fueled by our community, we can achieve the impossible. I transitioned from my role with the festival to project management at the Tom Tom Foundation. In this position, I learned the important entrepreneurial tools needed for a small organization to survive and thrive. And at the same time, I was able to work and collaborate with leaders from across the country who are all focused on improving their small cities. It still makes me excited today to hear about the success of one of our speakers shared in a national platform, because when we worked with them, all they had were problems and unlikely solutions. They show again and again that innovation is more than a buzzword. We worked with changemakers who were determined to improve their hometowns for everyone and were ready to fail over and over until they got it right. I'm committed to working to address issues that will create a brighter future for everyone in Charlottesville. Our city is in a moment of transition. We have the opportunity to dismantle the harmful legacy of systemic injustices and build an equitable and thriving town. But we need strong and effective leaders to make this happen. Leaders who are willing to push the limits, try new ideas, and bring about positive change. Leaders who are truly committed to being servants of the people. My time at the TomTom Foundation and more recently at the XR Park Foundation also rewarded me with the most amazing benefit, working hand in hand with our community. During my time at TomTom, I worked with over 90 different organizations, locally and regionally, all of them who are dedicated to building thriving, equitable small cities. Zooming in during my time at the Art Park, and I was able to work with community leaders to showcase and celebrate the diversity of Charlottesville, and to create a public setting that fostered inclusive communities living and playing in the park on a daily basis. I'm proud of my track record working in the community and making a positive impact where I am. I'm confident that I have what it takes to introduce new ideas, new perspectives, and new energy to this council, and I believe that together we can create a real difference in all of our citizens' lives. As a potential replacement for Councilor McGill, I believe I have the skills, experience, and dedication to be that leader. It would be an honor to pick up the mantle and to continue to advocate for what drove Councilor McGill's campaign in 2019, the housing crisis, transportation, clean energy, sustainable practices, and racial equity. I believe that this year, Charlottesville Council has a choice to make, to push towards a more equitable and inclusive and thriving city for all, or to stick to the status quo and play it safe. In the face of challenge and uncertainty, I hope that we can rise to the occasion, even if it is the more difficult of the two options. Before I conclude, I wish to acknowledge that I believe our council should be more representative of its constituents. I recognize the importance of ensuring that all voices are heard and all perspectives are taken into account in the decision-making process, something I know which rings true to you four. With this in mind, I am extremely honored to be considered amongst the other 5 proven, talented, and impactful candidates who are with me this evening. I would like to express my gratitude for consideration, and I look forward to continuing to serve my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
Thank you.
Next is Kristen Zakos. Ms. Zakos.
As an S, I can really relate to the idea of not being last.
As an SZ in
SZ
particular.
at the end of the S's even. So good evening. I am Kristen Sakis. I live in Locust Grove neighborhood along with Mr. Wade. I am a former Charlottesville City Council member serving from 2010 to 2017. I was sorry to hear of Sina McGill's resignation, and I don't envy you the job of finding her replacement. I was heartened to see so many applied for this position because I want to be of service, and I believe I have the experience to hit the ground running on February 21st to address some of the complex issues before you: the zoning rewrite, the hiring of a city manager, the annual budget, and more. But I also applied because as a citizen, I care about the outcomes of the zoning rewrite, the hiring of the city manager, the budget, and all the other issues facing council this year. As a council member, I consistently voted for housing affordability, pedestrian and bicycle safety, quality infrastructure, environmental sustainability, education, employment access, criminal justice reform, and racial equity. But although it's natural to look to an applicant's positions on particular issues when making the selection, it's also important that the new member be able to work collaboratively as a member of the governing body, to understand the processes and precedents and the workload that apply to public decision-making and abide by decisions regardless of their own vote. It's also important that the new council member be tuned into the community and be committed to hearing the perspective of people whose voices often go unheard by government. I've lived in Charlottesville for almost 30 years. I've raised 2 children here, as well as 4 foster children, and participated in civic, religious, educational, and musical organizations that have introduced me to a wide range of Charlottesvillians. But I've also intentionally reached out beyond my own experiences, helping to institute City Council town hall meetings across the city, and by consistently attending events and meetings outside of my own close circles. I believe I've earned a reputation as someone who tries to listen to everyone. And as a former journalist, I believe that we must also speak clearly to the public through our own communications and by being responsive to the public's questions, directly, through open data, and through the media. As I see it, the City Council has 3 important roles, probably more, but at least 3. The first is to represent the people of the city in decision-making, how we tax and spend the public's money, the policies we enact, the values we reflect. The second is to make this an equitable, livable city in the infrastructure we build and maintain, in the services we provide and support, and in the policies that can encourage or discourage things like affordable housing, public safety, and economic vibrancy. The third is as one of the area's largest employers. We have a responsibility to create a welcome and supportive workplace and make sure that the city's 1,000 or so employees have the tools and encouragement they need to do their jobs with excellence, creativity, and respect. I want to thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening, and I look forward to hearing of your decision.
Thank you, Ms. Akos. Next is Kathy Galvin. Oh, I didn't even see you over there.
You do have a very tough decision to make. I'm very honored to be in the company of this group of applicants. So thank you very much for this opportunity. My name's Kathy Galvin. I live on 712 Lyons Avenue, Charlottesville, Virginia. I've been a resident of the city for close to 40 years. So dear Mayor Snook, councilors, Ms. Thomas, and Mr. Rogers, thank you for this opportunity. By the time one of us is appointed, there will only be 10 short months within which to make 3 big decisions: adopt the fiscal year's budget, adopt a new zoning ordinance, and hire a permanent city manager. I will not have a steep learning curve, and I do have a reputation for being a workhorse. From 2008 to 2020, my colleagues and I oversaw operational and capital budgets ranging from $40 to $190 million for the Charlottesville School Division, Charlottesville City Government, and the Rivanna Water and Sewer and Solid Waste Authorities. Much of my work on council revolved around the review and approval of zoning changes, including adopting a new West Main Street zoning ordinance that curbed the development of massive housing structures in response to the demands of residents in adjacent historic Black neighborhoods. I also have at least 30 years of experience working with zoning codes as an architect in the planning field. Nonetheless, adopting a new zoning ordinance is an exciting but daunting task because the public framing to date has been largely reduced to one word: density. But we can't assume that simply increasing housing density is the be-all, end-all if our goal is to increase the supply of affordable housing and raise Charlottesville area transit ridership levels. I believe they should. If that were the case, then based on census data available online, Charlottesville, which is close to twice the residential density of Albemarle County's growth areas, should have close to 50% lower home prices than the county. It doesn't. That's why I agree with the Affordable Housing Plan that we must find more ways to partner with nonprofit housing providers to build more affordable housing, especially at or below 30% annual median income, AMI. That's the category of greatest need that was identified in 2018 by the Housing Needs Assessment. Similarly, if the goal is to increase CAT ridership, then simply raising density alone will not lead to more people taking the bus. Not when our streets are disconnected and lack crosswalks and continuous sidewalks, and our transit wait times range from 30 to 60 minutes. That's why, although I appreciate the inclusion of the city's Streets That Work policy in the current draft zoning, I must agree with the comprehensive plan that we must locate, design, and develop compact, inclusive, and walkable centers at strategic locations along our corridors. Many of our small area plans seek to do that, but they have yet to be implemented. Building out these small area plans would also increase our block network and land capacity for more affordable housing. In all cases, our zoning and capital investment program must make it easier to develop affordable housing within the context of healthy, livable, interconnected neighborhoods without accelerating global climate change by destroying sensitive natural areas. I participated in 3 executive searches with my colleagues on the City Council, the Rivanna Water and Sewer and Solid Waste Authorities Board, and the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. In all cases, we sought a chief executive that could listen, communicate, problem solve, employ best practices, learn continuously, think strategically, and inspire his or her staff to execute the community's vision for the future in a timely manner. Finally, in addition to completing these 3 pressing tasks, the City Council must address ongoing challenges now, whether it's building more affordable housing, making our streets safer for all users, investing in our public schools, or any number of Council's priorities. I believe my experience may be of use to each and every one of you as we grapple together to address these challenges together. So thank you. It's truly an honor to possibly once again serve this country, and it's my country, it's my city, the city that I love so much and have committed my life to for so many years, both professionally and as an elected official. So thank you very much. Again, you have a very, very difficult job ahead of you. Have a good evening. And thank you for your service.
Thank you, Ms. Galvin. Next up is Natalie Oshrin. Natalie, is that you on the camera?
Hi.
Hi. You have 8
Sorry,
minutes.
I wish I could be there today, but I have COVID, so
Uh-oh.
I'm home. Probably better for everybody that way.
Thank you. Fire away.
All right. Mr. Mayor, councilors, staff, and citizens, hi. My name is Natalie Oshrin, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. First, I would like to thank Councilor McGill for her contributions and leadership as champion for social services, affordable housing, and addressing housing insecurity here and at Region 10 before that. I wish her and her family all the best. She was elected with a mandate by voters, including by me, to pursue these worthy concerns. I hope to address these issues and others with fresh eyes and energy as a new member of City Council. I spent most of my childhood in the Mead Park neighborhood, where I still live now. I graduated from CHS and then UVA, afterwards moving to take a job in Charleston, South Carolina. In high school and college, I volunteered for political campaigns at the state and federal level. While in Charleston, I was the staff for a city councilor, getting experience at a municipal level during a time when Charleston was beginning a period of massive growth in both resident relocation and as a tourism destination. Growth and tourism, of course, are issues that we are very familiar with for our city as well. My graduate degree in hospitality and tourism management formalized an education in how companies and cities administer their resources and market and maintain their attractiveness. My career in Charlottesville's hotel and event industry has been all about collaborating with small businesses to create memorable experiences for those who are in and who come to town. And on a daily basis, I solicit direct feedback from clients asking, what is your connection to Charlottesville? Why are you coming here? So I bring to the table the viewpoints of our business community and the visitors that we serve. There are so many reasons why my family and I are lucky to call this area home. However, obviously, our town is not equally rosy to all residents, and we are at a critical juncture for improving the quality of life for all of our citizens and the quality of the environment in which we live. My mission, should I be selected to serve on City Council for the rest of this term, is to champion access to work, schools, commerce, and services by pushing for even more homes and mixed-use areas to be built within city limits, and for improved public transit, pedestrian, and bike routes so that getting into a car is not the default strategy for reaching any destination. With the passage of the future land use map and the zoning rewrite that is underway, these livability goals align with current City Council policy, making steps toward addressing historical and current inequity and increasing market rate and affordable housing options for all. I'd be committed to working well with the current councilors to move these goals forward. I have the motivation to move past incrementalism and address problems swiftly and at a correct scale. We have to do big things. My generation is looking toward an uncertain future. My peers are at the age when some of us are trying to buy houses, finish school, start families, care for aging parents, help provide for younger siblings. But uncertainty about the future can interrupt those plans and stems from several places, from the struggle to find housing and food, a lack of faith in financial and government institutions, job dissatisfaction, a national regression of cultural norms and human rights, and a lack of visible representation of people our own age in the decision-making process, having power over our own futures. These are not necessarily new concerns or concepts. When my family moved to Charlottesville in 1990, the poverty rate was 22.5%. Today it's 23%. So for a quarter of the population, the future has always been uncertain. We know too much to let this stand, and we are too well resourced to not make big changes. Happily, the areas where the city is best equipped to make those changes, housing and transportation policy, are the areas that will have the most direct impact on improving the daily lives and the equitable distribution of resources to the citizens of Charlottesville. Let's start with housing. Most homes in the area are over $400,000. The barrier to entry into the housing market is so high, there's no possible room for equity without intervention from the city. The Affordable Housing Plan is an extremely comprehensive and well thought out document put together with tremendous partnership and care. I applaud the timeline set in the calls to action with subsidies in place and zoning adjustments understood and implemented within 6 and 18 months. But I would even encourage that zoning updates could be bigger and approved even faster. The 2018 Housing Needs Assessment says that the city's housing supply is limited by its small geography and built-out nature. It's a direct quote. I agree there's not much to be done about the geography, but I strongly disagree with calling Charlottesville built out. Not when there are surface parking lots taking up space directly adjacent to the downtown mall, and areas like Barracks Road and Harris Street are single-story commercial. I look around and see plenty of space, even in my own backyard. Increasing supply is the key. The big things the city can do, and thankfully is in the process of doing, are upzoning everywhere and subsidizing various programs in the meantime to help people pay their rent. The $10 million budgeted for affordable housing is a great help to the community, and the Pathways program has been a success in helping keep people in their homes over a challenging past few years. I want to see the planned cuts to the Pathway program in the new budget stopped and their finances restored. I also support the recommendation from the Affordable Housing Plan to provide low-income housing tax credits to allow locals to participate in the building process. The second part of improving livability is transportation, and of course, they're linked. More homes means people can live near their destinations and do not need to rely on cars as a primary mode of transportation. I support eliminating parking minimums for all new construction, even incentivizing builders to spend less on car parking. Parking requirements raise the overall cost of development, which is then passed to the home buyer or renter, decreasing affordability. Every dollar spent on cars is a dollar not spent on bike lanes, sidewalks, safer streets, e-bike subsidies, traffic cameras, public transit frequency, and streetscapes. Reducing car dependency reduces air and noise pollution, improves accessibility for those who cannot drive or cannot afford cars, and reduces construction costs by eliminating the need for private car storage. By reducing parking and increasing housing, we can't just make it harder for folks to drive and then call it a day. We have to give them alternatives that will one day feel like the natural choice. We're all in this together, aligned on issues like housing affordability and climate change. Of course, everyone here wants good schools. Greater housing supply increases opportunity for equity across the board. More homes means lower costs for tenants and buyers and less housing insecurity, and the opportunity to build generational wealth. If folks have shorter commutes, they can spend more time with their family instead of in the car going over the mountain. Teachers can afford to live in the districts where they work, reducing turnover by incentivizing talented teachers to move here or stay here. My hope for the next 10 months and beyond is that the city will make big steps. I have the time, energy, and drive to devote to council so that we can take these aggressive steps toward access and affordability in a timely manner. We have to be supply-side progressives for housing and transit, knowing that providing the housing and transit options will address and induce demand in the direction that we shape it. I'm asking for your vote to serve the remainder of this council term so I can join you and move forward as one for Charlottesville. I thank you in advance, and I look forward to partnering with you for the community.
Thank you, Ms. Oshrin. Hope you feel better.
Thank you very much.
And finally, Lisa Larson Torres.
I think T kind of falls towards the end.
Luck of the draw.
That's all right. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, councilors, Mr. Rogers, Ms. Thomas, and everybody else. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Lisa Larson Torres. I have lived in Charlottesville a little over 23 years. I am not a native, but I do feel as if I cut my teeth politically here in Charlottesville, especially after the election in 2016. There was a definite call to action, and whether it would be on a larger scale or a smaller one, I, like many, felt I needed to do something. August 2017 was another pivotal point in shaping, informing, and igniting my call to action. For the benefit of those who did not see my application, I will share that I am currently fulfilling my second term on the Charlottesville City School Board. I am proud of the work that our board has completed in the last several years, and undoubtedly, there is a lot more work to do. Ms. McGill's announcement to step off of council was unexpected. I am grateful for her voice and work contributions she did on council the last 3 years. But with the vacancy and need for a replacement, I was pulled to apply as I felt and feel I can't offer a lot now based on my work, experience, and personal qualities that I have. My current work with the school board and the last 2 years as chair have provided me with invaluable experience and point to some of my leadership qualities that would prepare me to step into this position if appointed. Beyond what I shared on my application, I would like to take a minute or two to speak to some of my personal qualities and attributes. They may not be job qualifications that someone would typically list on a resume, but no doubt they are qualities of a strong and committed leader. With a little help from family and friends, I would describe myself as passionate, caring, thoughtful, a relationship builder, empathetic, deliberate, consensus-seeking, and justice-focused. My daughter described me as kind, open-minded, warm-hearted, curious, and a good human being. I was recently doing some light reading on Charlottesville's proposed land use map, and I came across an opinion commentary piece written by Carmelita Wood in June 2021. In it, she provides a historical recap of how and why we are where we are in regards to housing, segregation, and zoning. But the takeaway that tugged at my heartstrings was this question: are we truly committed to equity and transformation? That right there is what guides me through my work, whether it be on the school board, on city council, or in day-to-day actions and activities? How will my action, or lack thereof, impact my neighbor and fellow citizen? Will my actions improve life for others? As I shared earlier, I do truly feel that the work I've been devoted to in the schools in the last 5 years has prepared me for issues facing council today. There is a definite interconnectedness and intersection of the work and issues being addressed. Many of these community challenges, if not all of them, play out in the schools on some level. Affordable housing, bike lanes and safety, budget approval, climate change and climate action plan, collective bargaining, food insecurity, gun control and violence, healthcare and accessibility, hiring a city manager, housing and rental subsidies, living wages, mental health supports, pedestrian safety, policy implementation, property tax subsidies and supports, public housing maintenance, rehab and renovation, reentry programs, schools, including building maintenance, modernization, and capacity considerations, sidewalks and walkability, social services and supports, taxes, transportation, and of course the zoning ordinance. That list is definitely not exhaustive. I appreciate also that some may be asking and have pointed out that I can continue my work or should continue my work on the school board. I get that. And whether I'm appointed or not, I am and I will continue my commitment to showing up, doing the work, asking questions, and engaging in uncomfortable conversations for the good of our community. I do want to also quickly thank and give a shout out to the other 19 people that applied. And please know that I am grateful for the opportunity to apply and speak tonight and to be considered for this possible appointment. Thank you all again.
Thank you. So those are our 6 finalists. I will now open the public hearing. As I said before, we will take people for 2 minutes at a pop, and again, I hope you folks will keep their comments positive. Is there anybody here? Again, we'll alternate, one here or one online. Anybody here who wishes to speak for 2 minutes in support of somebody? Mr. Cavett?
First, I want to comment that nobody knows, except for 3 close friends of mine, that I was going to be here speaking on this tonight. I think you need to have somebody that can hit the ground running. And we only have 2 people that have previous experience on council that really have a good understanding of how things work and what's been going on in the city. And I want to say that I feel that Kathy Galvin would be a good choice to have on council at this time. She has the knowledge of the city, the understanding of architectural planning, and be a great benefit to the city with upcoming zoning. Mayor Snook, last year we spoke and mentioned phone-based code. You told me that the current city council might consider it now. Now you have the opportunity to have an expert on the subject on the council. There are a lot of people in this town that are concerned with the zoning, because right now you could have a situation where developers come in, pick up lots, and they've already been buying them up, buying property, and basically have a tear-down situation. And neighborhoods are concerned what could end up happening. Mr. Rogers, Mr. Freeze have both said that character of this city neighborhoods is important to them, but that can change with what's getting ready to happen. Also want to mention before I run out of time that you're not going to get affordable housing, which has been the big keyword with the zoning, just by building. But new construction is expensive. unless you have government funding to help with that expense, you're not going to achieve real, true affordable housing. And I think Kathy Galvin could also assist with that in trying to achieve that funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cavett. Let's see if there's anybody online who would like to address us.
Yes, Mayor Snook, our first raised hand is Lakeisha Washington.
All right, Ms. Washington, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, counselors. I agree that you all have a very hard decision ahead. I am speaking on behalf of myself, but I want to say that I am part of the Charlottesville Low Income Housing Coalition, and last week we sent out questions to all of the candidates, and I'm so grateful for Natalie, Lisa, and Kristen for responding. And so when Kristen spoke about, responding to the public and being transparent, I really feel like those 3 ladies really shown that just in their response and their dedication to learn more. I have been a homeowner for 2 years, but prior to that, I worked 2 jobs, and I have a master's degree, never been on subsidized housing, but have worked 2 jobs just to make ends meet. So imagine what someone who does not have that kind of background has experienced. And I think that even though we are addressing housing issues now, this has been an issue for many, many years in the Charlottesville area. And so you want someone who's going to come in, whether they know it or not, and really dive in and do the work. A lot of residents are scared and nervous because we don't have anyone who has that lived experience on council. And because of that, it's really hard to develop trusting relationships. And so again, I reiterate, I'm thankful for those 3 ladies for responding to us and sharing their input. And I really, really hope that we pick someone who will continue to do the work around affordable housing, because it doesn't just stop when we have a zoning rewrite completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. Is there anybody else in chambers here who'd like to speak? Mr. Hall? 2 minutes.
Yes, I'm Johnny Hall from Fry Spring. The thing I wanted to say about when we were talking about fold-out stop signs on buses and the fact that nobody's paying attention to them and going lickety-split and breaking the speed limit and everything like that. My 15th point on my little campaign memo: fold-out stop signs on Charlottesville area transit buses as seen on school buses. More bike, scooter paths. In other words, the point is, what's good for our kids in school would be good for our adults riding the Charlottesville area transit buses. And I might add that the police, they can't be in all places at once, when the law is broken. But if they should pull somebody over that's done that, maybe the judge, Judge Sneethern, let's say, could say to them, all right, we're going to require you to ride the bus, and you can't go in the car anymore because you've done this, and you're really going to cause somebody to be hurt very seriously, and require them to ride the bus. There's plenty of seats on the bus. I ride it all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Next, pick up somebody online.
Next, we have Don Gathers.
Ms. Gathers, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, councilors and city manager and staff. While I truly appreciated your explanation at the beginning of the hearing, Mayor Snook, I have to say it falls short. We preach, we yell, and we scream about inclusivity and transparency, and yet, once again, we're faced with another situation where the community, the citizens, have been locked out. and have not had a true opportunity to have their voices heard. We've got to do better. This parallels in many ways the same thing that we went through with the appointment of the police chief. We have just got to do better. Yes, you were elected to do our bidding for us, but that doesn't mean that citizens still should not have the right to be heard and to be included in the process. Now, that being said, I understand the time constraints, but make an effort. Figure out how we can get this done. Now, that being said, I want to rise tonight in support of the name of Christian Zakos. Just as it has been said, she can hit the ground with both feet running. She has proven to be trusted in the community. She's proven to be on the right side of what's necessary and needed in this community through the years. And I think that her experience, her mindset, and her progressive nature would be very much beneficial to the citizens that she would be representing by filling the board. So again, I just rise in support of the name of former councilor Kristen Zakos. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gathers. Anybody here in the room who would like to speak now? All right. Anybody next online?
Next, we have Alexis Cooper.
All right.
You are on with council.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexis Cooper. I hope everyone is having a good night tonight. I come from living in the Hardy Drive apartments, which is a subsidized housing, to now living into another subsidized housing. I feel that affordable housing is important to me because some families, such as myself, barely make enough money to keep our heads above waters. As a single mother of 3, some days I'm above water and other days I'm not, because rent is constantly rising. As a child, home ownership was never installed into me. So my dream is to have a place called home to leave my kids behind. I hope that the council coming on board will continue to do the affordable housing work that the city has started. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Take somebody else online.
We have one additional raised hand at the moment, Marcia Geyer. You are on with council.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Good. I think you have 2 excellent choices, and out of a really strong field. There's nobody bad here, but to me the best are Kathy Galvin, who has in-depth knowledge about building, about neighborhood construction, and Kristen Zakos. She didn't talk about this much tonight, but she has a lot of grants experience that would be pertinent to housing affordability and the various the 2 big programs that from the federal government for climate improvement that we as citizens, as businesses, and as local governments can do. So in that area, she would make a great contribution, I think, in guiding council to what can be done beyond the city's own taxes. So I don't know. I don't know what you'll do, but I hope it's one of these 2 women. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Geyer. Is there anyone else online?
Yes, Mayor Snook, we have one more hand, Barbara Meyer.
Ms. Meyer?
Good evening. I was very impressed this evening by Lisa, she has hyphenated last name, Larson Torres. I think she would be an excellent choice. I think it would be very interesting to see 10 months of someone working both for the school board and for city council. I really don't want either of the city councilors we have already had to be appointed. And the two youngest people who spoke this evening, I would encourage to run for city council in the future. They had interesting ideas, but I'd like to hear more from them before I would endorse them to be on council. One of the things I keep coming back to is something that's 60 years old, and how we can have too much moderation, how we can have a passive peace, which is just a quiet thing, or an active peace, which is justice. And I want counselors who will look for the active piece of justice. And from tonight's presentation, Ms. Larson Torres really impressed me that she would work that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Is there anyone else online?
I see no additional hands.
Is there anyone else here in chambers who would like to speak on the matter? All right, that then closes the public hearing. We will be interviewing the candidates during a special meeting on Friday, February 10th. It will be a closed meeting. We will convene basically just to say we're going into a closed meeting, and then we will have interviews with them. And there will be a final decision made at the February 21st City Council meeting, which we will convey to the public at that time. So thank you all for, first of all, I want to say thank you to particularly to the 6 who came and spoke to us today. But I also want to share the praise for the other 14. It's not easy even to send in an application and to put yourself out there. And one of the things I learned looking at, there are a number of folks on that list that I did not know at all, but I think I may call up and say, you know, I'd like to have lunch with you. I'd like to talk with you more about some of the things you said. There are some very interesting people who said some very interesting things, and I'm looking forward to getting to know more of them better. All of that is to say, we've got an impressive group of people here in Charlottesville who want to help the city, and it's going to be a difficult decision, but that's what we're here for. So, anybody else? Final comment? Thank you all. That concludes this aspect of the public hearing. It does not conclude the meeting. As the meeting, we now move on to a resolution appropriating funds in support of Beacon's Kitchen Project. And I see Chris Engel and I see Yolanda Harrell. Is that, who's kicking this thing off here? Who's in charge?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, this is Chris Engel, Office of Economic Development. I'll get us started, and then Ms. Harrell will jump in with a little presentation. So this item is on your agenda tonight. It's a resolution seeking financial support for the development of a commercial kitchen being proposed by New Hill Development Corporation. New Hill is an African-American-led community development corporation that was formed in 2018 with the goal of strengthening the Black community in Charlottesville. This idea, you may be familiar with the vision plan for Star Hill neighborhood, which the city helped support. It was one of New Hill's first projects. This idea for a commercial kitchen originated out of that plan. And then over the last year or so, Yolanda and her team of local folks have been working to build this plan out. And it has gained a fair amount of traction. It has gotten some grants already. But it is in need of some additional funding to get it off the ground. So with that, I think I'll pause there and let Yolanda, she has a brief PowerPoint presentation to give you an overview of what the commercial kitchen is, why it's important, and how it could benefit the community. And then I'll come back on and kind of give the staff recommendation for the resolution.
Thank you. Ms. Harrell?
All right, there you go.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to present to you this evening on behalf of New Hill Development Corporation. Thank you, Chris, for the introduction. So I know that we have limited time this evening, and so we'll get right into it. This is Beacon, which stands for Black Entrepreneurial Advancement and Community Opportunity Network. And what we are seeking to develop is a shared use commercial kitchen and incubator here in Charlottesville. Just to give you a little bit reminder of who we are as New Hill, but also we have gone through a strategic plan in the last year. And so we have updated our vision plan as an organization. And that vision plan, our vision is expanding economic opportunities that redefine wealth for a thriving Black community. That's who we are. And of course, we are still on a mission to expand economic opportunities to grow wealth and ownership in the Charlottesville Black community through financial coaching, entrepreneurial support, economic development, and asset building. And of course, this project aligns with that entrepreneurial support and economic development piece that we speak of in our mission. So what are we talking about here? For any of you that may not be aware of what we are seeking to do, essentially what we're saying is, what if we could reduce financial barriers? What if we could create at least 94 new jobs? What if we could add more diversity to the local food economy? And what if we could help stabilize existing businesses and support up to 70 businesses at once in one location? That's the what. That's what we're seeking to do with this particular facility. When you think about a shared use kitchen, essentially what you want to think about is the fact that we would be building a fully equipped shared space, commercial kitchen and incubator for rent on an hourly or a monthly basis. So think about a gym membership or maybe even like a WeWork. Essentially, the individuals don't have to risk their financial future in order to test their idea and have the ability to investigate whether their dream is going to be something that they want to pursue further, or if it's something that they decide later on that it's not for them, then they can absolutely walk away from it without having made a super huge financial investment. As Chris mentioned, this idea it is born out of what we presented in the Start Hill plan. Essentially, when we talked about some of the strategies in that plan, one of the strategies that came forth after we did a lots of community engagement and talking with not only existing businesses in that area, but obviously new businesses and spending a lot of time in talking with Black entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs about what it would mean to be able to have a business incubator, to be able to have a space that was built centering the Black community with us in mind, and to have a way to come together to collaborate, to convene in one space, and to innovate together. And so that's what we're seeking to develop with this particular plan. All right, so who does this benefit? Well, it benefits anyone that really works in the food service industry, or that has a food business idea. It doesn't lend itself just to startups, but also to existing businesses. So whether it's a food truck, whether it's a existing business that wants to expand their revenue lines, their revenue streams. Let's say you're operating in a small kitchen right now, but you really want to develop out your catering line. That is something that's really growing, but you can't service both the restaurant or the cafe as well as your catering all out of the same kitchen. This allows for that business to be able to develop that portion of their business out without making that financial investment in buying all the equipment or entering into another lease agreement. This would allow for them to be able to come into that space. Also, anyone that has a packaged product, we will be able to assist with anyone that has value-added products that are looking to take that product to market, whether it's locally. Our goal is to help it grow beyond the local community as well. This particular space will offer freezer, dry, cold, storage. So essentially, a business can fully operate out of this facility without having to have another space until that business is ready to move to their own storefront space. And so the goal is to really build and see the opportunity for entrepreneurs that are working in the food space. We want to see this as a space where you have existing and new come together, and that we have the ability to share information and to be able to share knowledge and to hopefully collaborate and create together. So just to give you an idea of what this means to the individual, okay, let's take a look, for example, at a startup catering business and what that could potentially mean if you were doing this on your own. You're building out your own space, you've gone through training, you got on a low end $10,000 worth of build out costs. You've got equipment that you got to purchase, which you're going to spend about $60,000 on a very low end, $60,000 on equipment. You've got lease, and again, this is a very low end lease for Charlottesville. It's a lot more than this oftentimes, but let's say it's $3,500 a month. And then that small catering company also has utilities, storage, small ware rentals on a monthly basis. If we were to take that same business and you were to put it into the commercial kitchen, right now they're currently spending $6,100 a month. What we're saying is, you can do the exact same thing that you're able to do, but you can do it for a lot less. And the monthly lease of $1,200, that is just an arbitrary number. That is not the number that we've decided on, but it's just to demonstrate what the difference is. And what you're looking at is for that particular individual, that small entrepreneur, that at a minimum, they're going to save about $4,500 a year, $45,000 a year, just without having that extra overhead cost that they would have by doing this business straight out of the gate in their own space. All right, so we, as Chris mentioned, we've been working on this project for quite some time. We've been doing a lot of financial analysis around it, but we didn't want to just take our word for the level of impact that this would mean for our community. We wanted to have it looked at, and so we submitted our project to the Weldon Cooper Center for them to give us an honest assessment of what it would mean to the local economy in terms of doing this project. So what you see before you essentially is a snapshot of what it means in terms of revenue dollars, but also what it means in terms of jobs to our community. And not only what it means in the first year, but what it means over time. This project pays for itself. The investment that we're asking you to make in it, certainly get that back. And based on what the Weldon Cooper Center has demonstrated here, in terms of millions of dollars that flows back to our community here as a result of the businesses that are associated, that are established in this community, this certainly comes back to our community very quickly. We're taking a collaborative approach. I'm not going to go through each one of these businesses here, but as you can see, we're not starting something new, but we're building on what exists here, and we're of course hoping to build this circle out even further. This is not exhaustive of the potential partners that we can have in order to make this work. However, we do build upon some of the training that is going on already with CIC. We have a food business boot camp that we started and piloted last year that builds off of what has already been done by CIC. We work with the SBDC in terms of individuals that need some additional support with their business. We, of course, work with Culinary Concepts. They are the chefs that support us with the food business boot camp. And we are working with Virginia Food Works, which is a cannery and co-packing partner down in the Farmville area as well. That's going to support our packaged product piece. This is the project team. These are the folks that are supporting us. Some are our board members. One person in particular you may remember is from our construction company. This is Devon. He is with Team Henry. And you may remember Team Henry because you all hired them to take down the statues around town.
Yep.
And then this is the location of where we're seeking to build out this kitchen. This is Kathy's Shopping Center. This is the warehouse portion of it. You may remember it as Kathy Produce or Cavalier Produce, depending on when you arrived in Charlottesville. But this space is significant in size, and it will house what we need to do. This is just a layout. It's probably a little too small for you all to see there, but essentially what it shows and demonstrates is that there are a total of 16 stations where at least 16 different businesses or individuals can be in there at the same time working. All the equipment is along the backside here, and then you've got walk-in and cooler space and dry storage space here, and certainly can get into more detail about what all it offers. But what it does do, it creates an opportunity. This is about 10,000 square feet of space that we're looking at here. Lots of opportunity for folks to work together. This is an isolation room here. This allows for individuals that are cooking something with an allergy or baked products to be able to utilize those isolation rooms. This is the project timeline as we know it today. Again, it shows that we started working on this back in 2019. This is not something we started just yesterday. It's something that really stood out to us as something we could implement from the plan pretty quickly. And then we spent a lot of time during 2020, as a lot of other things were shut down, to really do a lot of interviews with other incubators and shared use kitchens around the country. We narrowed our focus down to 2 of them, one up in Boston that's been around for more than 10 years. That's a nonprofit as well. They currently support about 65 businesses out of theirs. And then also Hatch Kitchen, which is a for-profit kitchen over in Richmond that currently supports 60 some odd businesses out of theirs as well, and to really get a good understanding of the best approach to what we're doing. But this gives you an idea of what we're looking at from a timeline perspective. And then this gives you an idea of what it's going to look like when it's done. So this is a rendering of the inside of what the kitchen would look like with everything up and operational. This gives you a line view here, so you can see the equipment along the back line of the wall there, so you can get an understanding of how it works. So that's the kitchen. This is a overview here of what it's costing to put this project together. So this is the sources and uses of cash here. So you can see the amount of contribution that goes towards leasehold improvements, which of course is the build out and the equipment. And you can see how it all flows. We also have working capital in there and contingency. So that gives you, and of course we have financials that can give you a deeper dive on this if you need that. And then this is what we've done so far in terms of what we've been able to secure. Again, it's a $2.3 million total investment. We have gotten a commitment from CIC for a $500,000 loan, and the rest are grants. Go Virginia, $225,000. AFID, which we just won towards the end of the year, thanks to Chris and his department with the help for that. That's $100,000 in total. Private donations, about 130. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Truist have also donated, and we're continuing to fundraise with this project as well. So right now our funding gap is about 1.2 million. So part of the reason why we've come to you this evening is because we do want to go ahead and get this project off the ground. We are working very diligently with the construction team to move things along there. And we want to make sure that this project is up and operational before the year is out, because our community can't afford to wait. Entrepreneurs are very adamant about being able to pursue their business opportunities as they should be. And so the goal of this is to be able to give them an opportunity to do that without, again, risking their financial future in order to make sure that they have a business that is operable. Part of the services that we didn't mention, that I didn't mention in my presentation, is that as part of the Beacon's Kitchen, that there is marketing as well as bookkeeping support. One of the things that we found in helping entrepreneurs during the pandemic, that to apply for opportunities like EIDL and PPP, that many individuals did not have those things in place in order to allow them to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. And we know that resources are limited when you're an entrepreneur, and you have to make tough decisions about how you're going to stretch the capital that you do have. And so a lot of times those decisions get made to like focus on the big things, but sometimes it's the small things that really can come back to haunt us down the road. And so we want to make sure that we're not just telling people about how to focus on those small things, but we're actually helping them focus on it as part of their participation in the kitchen. So that's my time. Thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Yolanda. just to follow up on, is there any particular question for Yolanda at the moment?
I had one quickly. Thank you for the presentation. It was excellent. And it's a great project. The one slide that had the list of basically the cost, it was the budget for doing the project. The land and buildings, I believe that line item said $0.
Right, because this is not a construction project.
Okay, so
it's a build out. It's a redevelopment of an existing property.
But there's some, is there a separate line item in there for leasing, or how does that work? I mean, are you going to?
Yeah, it was under leasehold improvements.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome,
So the facility, the building itself, you're going to be leasing from someone?
Absolutely.
Okay,
We
all right.
we will be leasing that from York Properties.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so as you can see in your packet, there's a resolution developed for this item. Staff believes this project has the potential to be impactful, perhaps even transformative, and it should receive city support. A couple of reasons to support that. One, it meets a recognized demand in a strong and growing sector of the economy. Hospitality, tourism, culinary, food service, food and beverage is all large in this community currently, and this would help support small entrepreneurs that want to get into that and grow their business. Two, it promotes the opportunity for job and wealth creation in the city, particularly amongst communities of color. And three, it demonstrates a positive return on investment. I'm characterizing this as an investment from the city, even though it will be formulated in terms of a grant to New Hill. This is an investment that has a return through additional business activity and local taxes, as was demonstrated by the Weldon Cooper analysis. So the city will recoup its investment over a period of time. So the project represents a unique opportunity to grow the economy and assist in developing new businesses, and the staff recommends the resolution signaling the city's intent to contribute $500,000 to the project. So what is specifically proposed is a one-time investment. Yolanda did mention that their pro forma has working capital built in for the first several years, such that they can reach a stabilized operating status. So it is not anticipated that they will come back to the city for operating dollars, so to speak. So this is a one-time investment of essentially unrestricted, if it's offered in such a way as a grant that allows them the flexibility to leverage additional dollars as well as actual cash to get started. And many of the grants that Yolanda mentioned have matching components. This cash will actually help fulfill that and really get this project moving. So the proposal is that once the project shows it is fully funded through commitments, then a grant agreement would be executed between the city, by the city manager, and New Hill Development Corporation. One other piece to mention is that the Charlottesville Area Community Foundation is actively engaged in this project as well, seeking to develop particular donors that have an interest in this type of space. They did offer a letter of support for the project that we have in file here, and they are actively working. And we do believe that if the city were to signal their support, that would assist in that effort going forward. So this is a resolution. It's on for first reading tonight. If you have additional questions for me or Yolanda, we're happy to answer them. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Chris, let me jump in here just to say I've heard this presentation several times, and each time I get more and more excited about it as I learn, another reason why we should support it. One reason is the resolution or the proclamation that I read at first when we talk about to kind of amend for some of the past practices of the city and this country is programs like this. We should support, but this is something that's really going to be a big benefit for the city. And I was talking with someone recently about this, and I said, we could have the Knicks equivalent of Apple or Microsoft in this type, because we don't so many people want to start their business, they just need a little support, and I think that this is this is something that will do it. And so I'm really excited about this. I hope that we can support. I've only heard positive things about it. So thank you, Chris, for your work on this, and staff, and of course Yolanda, you and New Hill Development. And it was something that you said that was new that I didn't realize. So maybe it was someone else had mentioned that New Hill Development is going to be providing some of the financial planning for their project. So all these projects gets mixed up, but y'all are doing a lot of good work in the community. So thank you very much. So.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, Brian asked the question I had about whether you all would own or lease the land. Do you know, like, how long is the lease with York? Was it York Properties?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's York Properties. Our lease will, in totality, we will have up to 20 years or longer.
Mm-hmm. The only other question I have, I agree with others. I think it's a exciting project that the city should support. The only question I have is for the city, kind of an in the weeds question, but I think it does matter, is in the packet for it, 250 of the 500,000 comes from the city's strategic investment account that we already allocated ARP money for. Get that. The other half comes from unrestricted, unallocated part of ARP funds. Why is it split half and half between those two pools of money?
Yeah, I think I can answer that, Councilor. I think there's a little bit of confusion, and rightly so, with the naming. The city has had a strategic investment account for going on 20 years. That is the source that is referenced here in terms of strategic investment account. You are correct in that back in August, the city did allocate numerous ARP dollars, one of which was a line item that indicated funds for a strategic investment, and it was very loosely defined as opportunities in the future, basically undefined opportunities in the future. That was referred to as strategic investment. That is not the strategic investment account that's referenced in this memo. So that's possibly where the confusion comes in. The other half is unallocated contingency funds of the ARP funds that the city has at its disposal and has a timeline on spending. So 250 from ARP, 250 from an existing account that the city has had for many years for strategic type purposes. Hopefully that helps clear that up a little.
That is clarifying, but raises the other question. Is just I don't understand. We allocated $1 million already through ARP to the Office of Economic Development that is different than this strategic investment account, but was also called strategic investment. I don't see why it wouldn't come from that pool rather than the unallocated money. And I'm not trying to raise this as a barrier for the city not supporting this, but we saw last budget presentation, we've almost got no money. So just every time we're whittling away at our unallocated ARP money, we're just reducing the flexibility we have, and that's my only concern.
I have a somewhat related question. I guess anytime I see more steps than are absolutely necessary, I wonder why. Why would it not be possible to say $500,000 comes from either the ARP revenue recovery contingency or the strategic investment account? Why half and half?
It certainly could come from one or either of those. In discussing this with Mr. Rogers, we came up with the idea that, since there is a timeline on the ARP funds, it might be good to spend some of these. They seem to qualify. And we'll take the other half from the strategic investment account. It certainly qualifies in the regard that this is we're looking at this as an investment that does have a return, and that's the general requirement around those funds, is that you invest in something that does have a return for the city. So,
is there any reason why it matters? Why does it matter to us which account we take it out of?
I think as a practical, in my mind, it matters to us where it comes from, because the unallocated money is money that we will have direct control over, and I think it will give us more flexibility particularly when we look at the context of the likely KTEC acquisition now, to have more flexibility if needs come before us for things like supporting the Havens Day Shelter program or a new program that comes before us, where if we're taking away even more money from unallocated, we'll just have less money for those priorities when they come before us.
So that is an argument in favor of taking more from the strategic investment account than from the ARP revenue recovery contingency?
That would be in my mind, or it's just all $500,000 from the $1 million we already allocated in ARP money to the Office of Economic Development. That, to my mind, seems to make more sense. But
that's fine. It really is 6 in one, half dozen in the other. If it's cleaner for you all to have it noted that way, we can, before this comes for second reading, we can have all 500,000 come from the ARP strategic investment line.
I mean,
Is that the $1 million that you're talking about? In other words, you're
Yes.
saying, Mike, okay.
When it comes back for second reading, we'll clean that up.
Okay. The other question I had while we're cleaning things up is that the resolution basically says that therefore be it resolved that the sum of $500,000 is hereby paid. And my understanding of what you were telling us is that it wouldn't be paid until the financing of the other $700 and some thousand was worked out.
Yeah, that's correct. The grant agreement would be put in place before it was actually paid. I think that kind of says we're going to hold it, and we're going to pay it from this account and hold it in this other spot until the grant agreement is formed.
And is the notion of there being a limitation on that? In other words, saying it's not actually going to be paid, is that going to be within the donation agreement?
That would be worked out, yes.
Okay, because I just playing lawyer here, when I see something that says this is paid,
yes,
that doesn't mean this may be paid in the future. It means this is. And I just want to be clear that the resolution needs to reflect the reality.
Right. It'll be cleaned up when it comes back to you on second
Okay.
reading.
I approve of the general concept, as I've said, and I think that for some of the reasons that have been expressed, among others, by Vice Mayor Wade, this is, you know, when Richard Rothstein wrote in Color of Law, he was being asked to write about the topic of reparations, and he said, I'd really rather talk about remedies. And this is the kind of remedy that I think is an important remedy, in that it helps get at some of the injustice, some of the particular injustice that's associated with Vinegar Hill from 60 years ago. That what Vinegar Hill did was to destroy a community that included a number of small businesses and included a number of businesses of this, of the kind that would benefit from this kind of a project. Businesses where the people owned the building, and when they had to go to a different facility, suddenly they had to be renting a building, and their costs went up and their ability to be financially feasible went up. And this is a way, I think, in a really fairly targeted remedy to, even though it's 60 years too late, to begin to redress some of those issues. So I think it's a great idea. Let's work out the language, and then anyway, that's my feeling about it.
So, yeah, so back for a second reading, not
Right.
for the consent agenda? Seems like with the other things that need to be hashed out, maybe consent agenda is not appropriate.
As a general proposition, if we're asking you to modify it between now and the consent and the next meeting, let's not put it on the consent agenda.
Okay.
But I don't expect a lot of dissent.
Right, yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Let's see, next item, considering a comprehensive sign plan for 701 East Water Street. Reed Broadhead, zoning administrator. Do we have Mr. Broadhead?
Mayor Snook, I do not see Mr. Broadhead in the meeting.
or anybody else who can present this issue on the comprehensive sign plan for 701 East Water Street?
Mr. Dillahunt may be able to send him a meeting invitation. He did send a notice to me asking to be a speaker.
Okay.
Yes, and he was just resent one about 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
Well, why don't we move on to the next item on the agenda, and if he can join us later on, we'll be good. So the next item on the agenda is the use of speed cameras in school zones, and I've got Brennan Duncan to present, but this doesn't, okay, here's Brennan Duncan. Okay, I was looking at the screen and not seeing Brennan Duncan, so.
Mayor Snook, councilors, thank you for having me here today. Just to kind of set the stage for this item, I wanted to give a little bit update for our Safe Routes to Schools and kind of how we got to this point this year. As you all know, the school bus driver shortage is a real thing. Prior to COVID and this year, we had somewhere in the 20s for school bus drivers. That's down in the low 10s and teens. So cutting our school bus drivers and coverage nearly in half. To kind of help supplement that, we've definitely beefed up our crossing guards. Before we had 3, we're up to 9 crossing guards now to try and assist the number of students going to schools, as well as 16 other staff employees who are, assisting with walking school buses and the like. We've expanded to cover the lack of school bus drivers. We've had to expand the walk zone or parent responsibility zone. For the elementary schools, that meant taking it from 0.3 of a mile to a mile. And for the middle and high schools, taking it from a half mile to a mile and a half. Of the 4,400 students enrolled in the schools, we now have 1,100 of those, a quarter of those, who are in the walk zone. This is nearly 4 times the students who were, required to walk or have parents bring them before. From a city infrastructure standpoint, we've remarked and marked missing crosswalks, close to 110 at the beginning of the school year, which equates to about 10 tons of the thermoplastic paint. We upgraded numerous school crossing signs. We've added school flashers. We've a couple hundred flex posts. As I'm sure many of you have heard complaints about, we've bagged the signal at Rose Hill and Rugby to try and help with school crossing there. That signal is set to be replaced later this year, so that's only a temporary solution. But just to kind of give that background. I also did want to give a little bit of time. Miss Adrienne Dent is one of the school crossing guards, and she had there's a letter to council from the crossing guards included in your packet, so I wanted to give her an opportunity to read that tonight. Ms. Dent?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Snook and council. Hope everyone's well. So this letter is signed by crossing guards Janice Ball, Kevin Cox, who spoke earlier, Ruth Hill, who many of us know and deeply appreciate, Vicina Howard, Anita Johnson, Robert Jones, Greg Okenschlager, Shawnee Robinson, and Jamie Wayne. Dear Council, we together, the crossing guards of Charlottesville City Schools, request the city introduce speed cameras to enforce school zone speed limits. We believe these cameras, legalized for school zone speed enforcement by the Virginia General Assembly in 2020, present the best solution to improve safety for our students moving to and from school. The division's expansion of walk zones at the beginning of the school year resulted in a dramatic increase of students walking to school. 1,100 students are not eligible for bus service. This is 800 more pupils than previous years. On a daily basis, we witness drivers speeding through our school zones while students walk, bike, and scooter to and from school. Speed is a major contributor to traffic and pedestrian deaths. We do not want this fact to be made reality on our streets or with our kids. We feel helpless to stop the reckless, unregulated driving which threatens students' safety daily. We love our kids. While on duty and monitoring many variables to ensure students' safe crossing, we have no capacity to capture license plates or vehicle information sufficient for enforcement or accountability. Because the Charlottesville Police Department remains very understaffed, we understand that the possibility of intermittent officer support for traffic enforcement in school zones is not yet a dependable solution. It is our hope that the speed cameras in school zones with appropriate signage will raise awareness among drivers and incentivize adherence to traffic laws. We request that the city pilot these cameras in 3 locations. In these locations, we witness consistent speed violations during school hours. Monticello Avenue at Clark Elementary School, where Miss Hill is the crossing guard. Cherry Avenue at Johnson Elementary School, and Cherry Avenue at Buford Middle School, where Jamie Wayne is the crossing guard. We understand that some community members have concerns regarding photo traffic enforcement. To be clear, our intent is to improve student safety. We ask for cameras operating to enforce speed only in school zones and only during the school zone hours. To mitigate the financial impact on low-income members of our community, we suggest alternatives to cash fines for a first violation, for instance, a required traffic safety course. In implementing these cameras for school zone speed enforcement, Charlottesville would be joining the city of Alexandria, Arlington County, the city of Fairfax, as well as other communities throughout Virginia, Washington, and Maryland. The city of Alexandria's page about the cameras offers a helpful overview. We appreciate the city's existing work this year toward bike and pedestrian improvements across the city and its support of safe routes to schools. Thank you for considering this additional method for increasing the safety of our students. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll get into kind of the meat of this. So as was stated in the crossing guard letter, there was 2020 legislation that allows municipal jurisdictions to install or use the speed cameras both in school zones and in construction zones. And really with, the school bus driver shortage and the police shortage, we feel like this is a good opportunity to use these in 3 of the busiest locations around our schools. We have reached out to other jurisdictions who have implemented or plan to implement the speed cameras for use in the school zones. The consensus seems to be to use a third-party vendor, which takes a lot of the responsibility of staff, both our maintenance staff to purchase, install, maintain, calibrate the cameras. As well as the processing of the permit, or sorry, not the permits, of the fines, sending out, mailing, invoices, all that kind of stuff. Really, it would come down to just a police officer reviewing the footage after it's been reviewed by the third party, and then they'll handle the mailing and all that kind of stuff. As far as costs go, at least from the one vendor who I had spoken to, there are opportunities where it would be extremely low cost, if not no cost, on the part of the city. The state legislation does indicate that it has to be a fixed cost, so that we're not paying based on a per ticket. They can't take a per ticket amount or anything like that. But the one vendor, at least, they have a set fee, and if for whatever reason the tickets generated by that camera don't meet that, the city would only be on the hook for the amount of the tickets that were done with that. So there's really no risk to the city to kind of stay in the black with this program. So yeah, as was stated, currently staff in the school administration and school crossing guards, we're all on the same page with proposing the use of the cameras in the 3 identified locations for Monticello Avenue, for Clark Elementary, and the 2 schools along Cherry Avenue, both Buford Middle School and Johnson Elementary. They're selected based on the number of the children walking, number of observed violations by the crossing guards, as well as the volume and speed of the traffic along those roadways. These locations could be expanded in the future by council action, depending on the success of the program and desire of greater community to enforce the speed limits around school zones and protect some of our most vulnerable residents. So with that, if there are any questions, either about what could possibly be the program or the legislation or anything like that, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I would think something needs to be done. I'm kind of looking at this with a couple of different hats on. One, as a former transportation planner, had to do these type of analysis for the county schools and different times when we would get reports of it, and also as someone who travels, and I pass by a couple of these crossing guards, every day when I'm on my way to work. I'm thinking of the one at Locust and Bypass and Monticello and Hinton. And I just think that this is something that would give us a fighting chance. I see too many cars pass. I used to, when I was on the school board, spend some time at Clark Elementary School, and it's amazing, even in that tight area, how many cars would just pass by the buses with the stop arms up and everything, and the teachers and the principals would be yelling at them to stop, and they would just keep going. I just think someone's going to get hurt and maybe even killed if we don't do something. And I think that this is something that we could implement. We could deal with the any of the negative impacts of it based on the things that you said, and we got some good comments from Seville, Livable
Seville.
I'm sorry, Livable. It's been a long day, so to address any concerns. I haven't heard any yet, but I'm sure that they are, and I would like to see this done in a piloted area if we can. I've seen too many close calls over the years, and particularly this year. So.
Yeah, and I appreciate that this is initially, targeted in specific areas. I guess the only questions I have is one of the things referenced is the question of whether or not they'll operate just 1 hour before and after student pickup and drop off, or for a longer period. Is there any data you're going to be looking at and evaluating to see which of those approaches is best?
I think that's really up to our community, council, staff. I don't necessarily have a preference. Some of it we may need to lean on our attorney's office. The legislation says that while students are present or are active, I believe is the word. So some jurisdictions only have it that kind of 30 minutes to an hour before and after drop off, because that is when the students are active on the premises. Other school districts, they say that, okay, from the time that half hour before drop off to a half hour after pickup is when the students are active and present on the premises. And we can program them differently, but we have the flashing school zone which are only active during the pickup drop-off times, and that is when the reduced speed limit is enacted. So we do have the ability with this program to do it during that whole school day. I think that's just going to be a larger conversation as to how we do that.
Yeah, and I admit I haven't thought too much about that. My initial thought is that it may be worth doing throughout the duration of the school day, because we all know there's kids who may leave early, have a class activity where they're walking outside and maybe around the streets. So it's not only, the highest risk is at those drop-offs in the morning and afternoon, but it's not the only one. Related to that, I know this is targeted in 3 areas initially. Were there any other areas that jumped out as potential hotspots where it also maybe could be necessary but didn't make this initial short list?
Yeah, I mean, the legislation is pretty restrictive where it's in the school zone, which is a defined space. I believe it's 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet from kind of the school boundary. So some of our other locations like High Street, we would kind of be pushing the limit of maybe the legislation of the school zone. You know, some of the other locations we may be able to look into as well, but again, these were the three kind of hot button ones, especially with the recent reduction of speed on Cherry Avenue. You know, people are just kind of historically used to driving faster, and then Monticello Avenue, coming off of 64, they're coming into the city after having driven fast for their commute, and although the speed limit is 25 right there at the school, it's 35 at Carlton. Right. So it's, you know, a couple hundred feet where they have a chance to slow down if they get a green light. So just trying to reinforce that reduced speed limit in that particular location.
And one of the other things raised at public comment tonight is having cameras on like the buses themselves and kind of the stop signs that go out. I know there was some email back and forth about this. Was that an issue where there needs to be additional action from the state legislature before we could do that, or am I wrong on that?
No, Albemarle County has that already, and I know that was something we had brought up with the school as far as whether they want that on their vehicles. So we were going to reach out. That would maybe be a separate. I'm not sure if that one requires a council resolution or if the schools can just do that one. But that is something that we're talking about with the schools as far as if they want those. We just want to get some input from other jurisdictions who've implemented, especially Albemarle, to see, you know, what kind of success rate they've had, what kind of issues they've had, and whether it's something we actually want to do.
For sure. Well, that's good to hear if it's a direction we did want to go, that it's easier rather than a little easier than I thought it was. There's all the questions I have, and I think I agree with others. I think it's a positive thing, and people who are blowing by school buses and kids who are walking should have the expectation that there'll be consequences.
Will you entertain a motion?
Well, I would like to raise one topic before we get to your motion, and that is, if we were to amend the resolution that was proposed to us, so it would say to approve the use of speed cameras on Monticello Avenue for the school zone near Clark Elementary, and on Cherry Avenue for the school zones near Buford Middle School and Johnson Elementary. The ordinance is fair, the state enabling legislation is fairly clear that it's only for school zones, but I think it would be helpful if we just specified that school zones are the only thing we're talking about. And then the question that's a little bit more difficult is whether to add something along the lines of this sentence. These cameras are to be used only when the school zone signs that warn of a lower speed limit are activated. In other words, that would tie it to when the light comes on that says 15 miles an hour. Now this is what we're talking about.
Is the code section that it references, does it already include all that stuff sort of implicit?
It doesn't include the second thing that I was just mentioning. It does pretty much include the first part, but it doesn't, as far as I can see, and it's a long statute, and I was trying to read it as we were going, and I may well have missed something, but I didn't see anything in there that limited it to a particular time of day. Do you know of something, Mr. Duncan?
No, and that was kind of what I was indicating when Councilor Payne was talking. I think it's a little vague, so we can, it's kind of when, I can see if I can find it here, reading through, but I believe it states while they're active, which, like I said, is vague.
And certainly if we've got the light on and it's flashing, that's a pretty good indication that it's active.
Yeah, and there are several jurisdictions that require the photo, the video to have that light kind of in view, so that it can be seen that it is actually active and flashing at that time.
So, anyway, that's a suggestion that I was going to make to add to the resolution. I don't know if that messes up your desired resolution.
No, I think we should agree on something we think is the most appropriate. So I guess, are you looking to amend the text?
Amend the resolution as it appears on page 266 of our packet.
Okay, I move that we amend the resolution as it appears on page 264 of our packet.
266.
266.
To say. To approve the use of speed cameras on Monticello Avenue for the school zone near Clark Elementary, and on Cherry Avenue for the school zones near Buford Middle School and Johnson Elementary. And then add the following sentence. The cameras are to be used only when the school zone, in quote, signs that warn of a lower speed limit are activated.
Okay, I move that we modify the resolution with the language that the mayor has just provided.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Okay, do we have to vote on the modification first and then come back?
No.
Okay.
So, Ms. Thomas, you take the vote.
Is there any comment from our attorney? Are you good with that?
I think you can do it with one motion or two. I think that's up to the council.
Okay, we'll do it with one.
We'll do it with one.
All right.
As read.
Yes.
Okay.
Councilor Payne?
Yes.
Councilor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Duncan.
Thank you.
Now, have we gotten Mr. Broadhead back?
Yes, Mr. Broadhead is with us.
Okay. Mr. Broadhead, want to talk to us about 701 East Water Street?
Hello, good evening. Yes, sir. So this evening, I'm here to read a staff report about a proposed comprehensive sign plan for the property located at 701 East Water Street.
Okay.
So this property located within the downtown mixed-use district. It's a large office building containing 85,000 square feet of office space, and it also has a large parking garage. Some of the primary.
Hello, Mr. Broadhead? You just went away on us.
Can you hear me?
Are you back?
Can you hear me?
I can now.
We can.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm just having some technical difficulties here. I apologize. So, like I was saying, this is a comprehensive sign plan, and according to section 1045, applicants that have a development subject to site plan review or within an entrance corridor overlay may request approval for a comprehensive sign plan. And City Council may approve this comprehensive sign plan upon a determination there is good cause for deviating from the sign ordinance, and that the CSP will serve the public purposes and objectives at least as well or better than signage allowed by right. So this property in the downtown mixed use district is limited to just 100 square feet for the parcel. And they are also permitted to have up to 6 signs per section 34-1031. But the aggregate size limitation stifles the ability for the applicant to increase the amount of signage by adhering to the regular regulations set forth in the zoning ordinance. So the applicant has submitted the comprehensive sign plan to increase the total number of signs by adding 4 freestanding signs 2 at each entrance into the parking garage. So it'd be a total of 4 new freestanding signs, each measuring 6 feet tall by 26 inches wide. Each sign will have 10 tenant panels measuring 4 inches by 26 inches, which were designed so the text can be read by passing motorists. 2 signs will be placed at each exit/entrance and angled so motorists traveling in either direction will be able to read the text. The signs will not be internally or externally illuminated. Similar signs were recently approved as part of a comprehensive sign plan at the new Centera building located at 920 East High Street, which this board approved. The property currently has 3 large wall signs for each of its major tenants, Merkel, Hasman and Weeble, and UVIMCO. Staff recommends that the comprehensive sign plan include a maximum aggregate area of the allowable wall signage to be capped at 100 square feet, and also that only 1 freestanding sign, as opposed to 2, be allowed at each entrance. The Centera comprehensive sign plan, they only asked for 1 sign and they placed it perpendicularly to the road. And I think that it's excessive to have 2 signs at the entrance, essentially providing 20 panels for their tenants. There's 3 large tenants now. It's unclear how many more tenants there are, but to provide panel and space for 20 potential tenants seems a little excessive, especially since they're not at that limit right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you. I don't have any questions. I would just say the staff recommendations to me of limiting it to only 2 of 4 directory signs, 1 for each entrance and exit, makes sense to me. And I'd be prepared to support it with those
Along
restrictions.
with the sign above.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, the owner occupant is not here. Is there a way you could maybe give their side of things, why they feel so strong, or do they feel strongly, or is it just kind of a default position?
Sure. I've been in touch with the sign maker, Brian Draper of American Made Signs. It's a locally owned business. And that's the way he designed it. And I believe he angled them that way because he didn't want to create traffic issues with having people slow down to be able to see who was in, what businesses are located in that space. I have not had any contact with the property owner. He's been working on their behalf. So, and they were unable to attend. However, I believe Mr. Draper might be watching this meeting right now. And I discussed, my concerns about having 2 signs, and he didn't object either way, but I have a feeling, the tenant would like to have more visibility for the tenants in that space. But I think it's also probably that they're going to be revamping the space and maybe having more tenants in the future. So potentially maybe they need all 20 spaces. It is a large parcel. It's almost 4 acres. And to be capped at just 100 square feet is very limiting for the space.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I'm happy to move this if I can find the resolution.
I've got it up.
Go for it.
I would move to approve a resolution considering a comprehensive sign plan for 701 East Water Street with the staff recommendations included in the agenda memo.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay. Ms. Thomas?
Counselor Payne?
Yes.
Counselor Pinkston?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wade?
Yes.
All right, so that passes 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Broadhead. Glad we got you back.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay. Our last resolution is with Garland Williams, appropriating funds for the purchase of CAT radio equipment. Mr. Williams, are you with us?
I am, sir. Good evening, Mayor Snook and members of council.
Thank you for sticking around.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for sticking around.
Oh, no problem. Mayor Snook, members of council, what you have before you is a resolution to allow CAT to allow the city to purchase some radios on CAT's behalf, donate them, and donate the cost for the installation to CAT. Normally, this would be a process that CAT would be able to handle with this normal FTA funding. But in FY22, when the regional public service radio system upgrade occurred and the selection of the radios were chosen, the two styles of radios that were chosen did not meet the FTA guidelines for transit. Therefore, CAT couldn't use any of its FTA funds. We have been trying to work with FTA to resolve this issue. And it really comes down to is there was a change at the federal level. The radios that we selected don't meet Buy America because the majority of the parts were manufactured and built in China. Therefore, they are not eligible for us to use FTA funding. CAT is the last city agency to make the upgrade from the old legacy system. So if we don't do it fairly soon, when that quits, we won't be able to communicate with any of the other agencies around the city, which leaves us basically in a dead zone. We are asking that the city purchase the radios, which totals basically $217,000, almost $218,000 specifically just for the radios, and the remaining $19,400 is approximately $19,400 is for the installation. So that we can migrate to the new upgraded system with much more capable communications. And that's basically my report tonight, my request tonight.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Williams?
No.
So just one question. Is my understanding correct that these is radio equipment that basically already is here and we'd be ready to use immediately? It's not like this is...
The radios, because we were already in the process of trying to purchase them, are waiting at the third-party provider. We just need to physically purchase them and then schedule for the installation. So the timing will be pretty quick. As soon as the second reading happens, we probably would be able to get scheduling done within a couple of weeks to make this happen.
Yeah, seems pretty straightforward to me. Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right. I move the resolution appropriating the amount of $237,000 from the CIP contingency funds for the purchase of Charlottesville area transit radio equipment.
First reading.
Oh, she says first reading?
Yes, one of two readings.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay, so shall we move this on to the February 21st meeting?
Consent agenda?
Consent agenda?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, consent agenda. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. So that's the end of our business. Councilors, any other business items for consideration or items we want the city manager to follow up on? Okay, then this is the final community matters portion. If there's anyone who would like to speak, you have up to 3 minutes. You can join the speaker queue by selecting the raise hand option in the Zoom webinar, by pressing *9 if you've joined by phone. There's nobody here in chambers, so that's not an issue. Anybody online like to speak to us?
Mayor Snook, I see no raised hands at the moment.
All right. Well, then I guess we're adjourned.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We'll have plenty of things to do in the next week or two.